So today I'll be talking about the power of having a speak up culture, having environments where employees' voice is welcome, and it's really good for business.
Wow.
What? Okay, red light means we're on. And we're live. We're live. We're live. We're here. We're here. We're live. Live from our basements. Hello, LinkedIn universe. So good to have so many of you here. Hello, everyone. Steven Shadletsky here. Delighted to be with you again. What's up?
Live from DC. It's Thursday at unabashedly. Love it.
What up? What up? I got in trouble last time from my teammate Ale for not saying we're live.
Okay.
So we're live.
We're live.
We're live. We're here. I'm still in my basement. Joanna is not. You're not in your basement. This doesn't look like a basement.
I'm not in my basement. No.
Cool.
I'm in a very creative space with a brick wall behind me. I got a couple of awards that I've won. Rocking the Joe Hawk.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Love me a good Joe Hawk. Only few can pull it off.
I got a glam up for this shed. I got a haircut yesterday. The fresh fade.
Oh wow.
Trimmed some from the Joe Hawk. A little bit too much, if I'm gonna be honest. You know, when you have short hair like this, you are like millimeters away from like the perfect cut or too short. I do feel like it's a little short. And I don't know if you can see, but like I'm rocking a swim cap line.
Oh yes.
I went swimming this morning.
Can't see it, but I believe you and good on you.
I've fallen in love with swimming before the sun rises, Stephen. It's meditative.
Nice.
You can't listen to music. There's no instructor. You don't have to talk to anyone. You're in your own head.
Yeah. And
I found it to be very peaceful. But then I come home with goggle marks and a swim cap line. So I have to push my meetings back a little bit so I can still be cool.
There are worse fates. I love that. Hello, all. See, Jesse's here. Esther's here. Feel free, please, to hop into the chat. Let us know that you're here with us. Let us know if you wish where you're joining us from. And please, this is an interactive conversation as much as we can make it so. Ale from my team is here. Hey, Ale, thank you. And Ale will be in the comments helping out as we go. So please let us know, say hello, and make comments and ask questions of Joanna and myself as we go. I'm so pumped to have Joanna here because she is as rad and authentic and amazing as they come. I was introduced to you years ago, and it culminated with you actually being a guest of honor at my wedding.
Guest of honor. I mean,
guest of honor.
That's a bit much, Stephen.
You were the most notable. You were the most notable plus one. You were the most notable plus one.
I'll take it.
Yeah,
I'll take that.
And what's ensued is we've just kept in touch because you're awesome. And you are a former professional soccer player. You have written a book that is out, Raising of Tomorrow's Champions, TEDx Speaker. And you do amazing work. But in there it is. Yes. A long Joe Hawk there. And so I'm pumped to have this conversation because I love your take and stance on the world. I love your perspective. And we wanted to chat about a bunch of things. We wanted to chat about parenting because you will be a new parent soon. We'll talk about that. We'll also talk about sports, both youth sports, professional sports, culture of sports, and also just more inclusive, safer, better cultures in general in society and our organizations. So that's why we're here. Anything else sort of top of heart and mind for you before we hop in?
That's a fantastic menu of topics. And I do have to compliment you, Stephen. I don't know.
Oh, please go on.
Yeah. Low-key casual timing of having a former professional soccer player on your show during the World Cup.
Yeah.
I mean, unintentionally brilliant on your part. And sadly, we're both sitting here with two countries that have been knocked out of the World Cup, but it's been fun to watch. And I was rooting for the Canadians. I'm not going to lie.
Thank you. Yeah. I was rooting too, but I will admit that I have not been watching. It's actually really interesting. I don't think we're going to go here, but it's interesting what's happening with FIFA in general right now. Yeah. As you know, it's a container of such an amazing, loved sport.
Yeah.
that does so much, except some of those yellow cards and the reactions and the twirling and the ow, my ankle. It's like, you touched my shoulder. Come on.
Yeah.
Let's
It's a little theater mixed with a lot of drama. And don't have me explain offsides to anyone, because it's just going to take too long. So we're not going there.
I'm a hockey fan, so amongst us we have enough offside explanation to do in our years passing ahead. So what's top of heart and mind for you here? You know, I've laid out a bunch of the stuff: parenting, sport, soccer, youth, leadership, culture. Where you want to go with that snazzy code of yours?
Yeah, let's talk about the intersection of youth sports and parenting. You and I, prior to the show, were kind of kicking around some thoughts, and I was talking to you about the bridge of why sport is such a unique environment to talk about leadership, to talk about failure. And sports is the only environment, I truly believe, where you have a controlled and public space for suffering and for failure.
Oh, fun. Wow.
Yeah. Right. So sport is an arena that trains you to face your fears. It's the only space, I believe, where you can, you have to fall down, lose, make mistakes, and pick yourself back up again very publicly in front of other people, and often on global stages, and having to pick yourself back up again and pretty much doing it repetitively over and over.
Yeah.
So it is a steeping ground of development, because as you and I both know, failure to me is the most essential building block to authenticity. Failure is the most essential building block to greatness, right? You can't get to greatness without failing a gazillion times along the way. And what is unique about the youth sports world now is we're finding a space where failure is no longer applauded. Failure is no longer recognized as part of the process. We only want national championships. We only want achievement. We only talk about the successes. Every time our child walks off the field, we ask, did you win? When we should be asking, hey, what challenged you today? I loved when you fell over, you got knocked down, and you got back up again, right? Yeah. These are the characteristics we should be developing when we're living in a world that is outcome driven, that is results based. And we're not just seeing it in sport. We're seeing it in corporations and companies. We're seeing it in a global workforce of burnout, where we don't have the culture, the systems that support the process of achievement and greatness versus the outcome.
Nice.
Does that resonate with
you?
You?
My God, so much. Okay. I mean, I speak about this a lot with, are you familiar with, there's Kaizen and then there's lean management?
No.
So Kaizen comes from Japanese. It means continuous improvement.
Oh yeah, of course.
And it's applied to manufacturing. It's applied to business process.
Yes.
Now, for some reason, when it became Americanized, instead of calling it continuous improvement, they called it lean management.
Okay.
Which is the output, which is the outcome. That if you honor the process and approach things from a perspective of continuous improvement, you approach things from this perspective of Kaizen, you may get the outcome of lean, or you may not yet.
Yeah.
But when you market the outcome, you focus too much on the outcome and you end up not getting it, because you end up using sort of people as pawns in the process to get it in the end. So that's one piece that comes to mind. The other, Joe, have you ever heard of the sports dilemma?
I feel like it sounds familiar. Tell me more.
So this is a facilitation tool and trick that I learned, where you put people into groups and you ask them, you sort of prompt them with this dilemma. And the dilemma is you are the head coach of a youth sports team.
Yeah.
The team has done well, really well. You've won locals, you've won regionals, you're going on to the ship, baby. You're going to nationals. Nationals is a free trip to your local Disney, new team uniforms, like cue the music, right? It's
Yeah.
amazing. It's happening. You have 15 kids on your team.
Yeah.
You have to cut 3.
Yeah.
Who do you cut?
Right.
And there's no right answer.
Right.
The right answer is your values. So if you value winning and competitiveness, if we're going to this thing, we're going to win, you construct your team in a certain way. If you value teamwork and togetherness, you say we're not going.
Yeah.
You know, if you value fairness and equity, you draw straws, you know. So there's no right answer. It's based on your values. And so what I hear you saying is, you know, perhaps there's a time and a place to win.
Yeah.
But especially in youth sports, I think we need to value more than simply winning. And let's face it, some of the awful behaviors we see, not from the kids, but from the coaches and the parents, is a manifestation of perhaps a mismatch in values being behaved.
I want to throw a sentence out there, see how it resonates with you. The parent is the gatekeeper of a child's joy. And when I hear you talk about values, that's exactly how I am framing the lens on youth sport. And my mission, Stephen, is led because of pain and suffering that I see in the youth sports world. We're living in a mental health crisis for our kids. Anxiety, pressure, depression, right? All of these things where sport used to be a safe haven for kids to go get onto the field, run with reckless abandon, freedom, joy. And now it's an extra stressor on kids that are just being bombarded with pressures from every avenue of life. You know, social media, their school system is difficult. They feel the comparison, right? The sucking of the joy from comparison of everybody around them. And the parent is the gatekeeper of this. The parent can lessen that pain, or sadly, they can increase it depending on how they apply, right, their own baggage issues onto their child's sports journey. And my mission is to be a painkiller in youth sports. It is to be an innovator in a space where I almost feel like I'm talking about climate change, where it's only getting worse, right? Because if we have this results-driven world, if we have a winning at all cost attitude, top down, you're having coaches who have to win, right, for their clubs. You're having coaches who put pressure on the parents. The parents feel this pressure. Their poor kids are 9 years old. Like, it doesn't matter if you win. And winning is guess what? Winning is a byproduct. Winning is a byproduct of having the right systems in place. And winning is a byproduct of great development. And honestly, it does not matter until you hit college professional level if you win or lose. So what are we prioritizing in our development of youth? We're prioritizing win at all costs because I want to get that college scholarship. I want to get the professional contract. And you know what? 0.01% of the population, that's going to happen for you. So the 99% are suffering due to the ambition of the 0.1% of the athletic journey. And that suffering is real, Stephen. Like, we have kids quitting sport by the age of 13. 70% of kids are quitting. And the kids who stay on, it is a pressure cooker, right? It's a pressure cooker. And the only way for us to release that pressure is to have that value-based decision-making. If my child plays for a coach who is verbally abusive, sure, her friends are also on the team, but what am I teaching her?
Yeah.
I'm teaching her that leadership is through fear. I'm teaching her that motivation is through threat. And we've seen now that this follows them into adulthood. A report just came out in the NWSL, which is the National Women's Soccer League here in the United States of America, 180-page report by Sally Q. Yates, the former Attorney General. And she, it's a culture of sexual misconduct and abuse within the NWSL. In this report, she said it happens because it's normalized in the youth levels. It's normalized in the youth levels. We believe that this is leadership. We believe that a rite of passage to get to greatness is to be beaten down by our bosses, by our teachers, by our coaches. And that is the only way for me to be great.
Yeah.
So that's the situation that I'm seeing and I'm hearing from everyone that I work with. And there's just a lot of pain that I'm feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. I think of Andre Agassi, who
Mm-hmm.
was world class, but it was
Yeah.
through, it wasn't joy.
Yeah.
It was thief of joy. It was abuse.
Yeah.
And it was so much driven from, I believe, I don't know all the facts, and I know it's in his biography, but from his dad, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
I think of Michael Phelps. So when he retired, he had a depression and loss of identity
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
if he, like, I look at you and your career, like you're flourishing and attempting to flourish beyond your professional soccer career because you identify yourself as more than simply a
Yeah.
professional athlete.
Yeah.
You stand for more.
Yeah.
So can you, so it's a bleak picture. It's not
Mm-hmm.
looking good. How
Yeah.
do we make progress? Where do some of the
Yeah.
solutions live here?
Great question. Yeah. And what you said about the identity piece is massive, right? It's somewhat called identity foreclosure, or a fragility that we have within our identity when we say, I am a soccer player, right?
Yeah.
I am a, who knows, musician. And when we say statements like that, we are foreclosing our identity. And when I step up to strike a soccer ball, if I am a soccer player, it no longer becomes about the technique of striking through a ball and using my hips and using the right part of my foot. It becomes, this is my identity. And it triggers in our brain, which is set for survival over thriving. It sets into our brain the fight, flight, or freeze. So when I get up to strike a soccer ball, I freeze, because this is greater than just the simple act of kicking a ball. This is about my identity. This is about who I am. And so the solutions, first of all, like we talked about, it starts with a value assessment as a family, as parents. What are the values that are driving my child's sport experience? And this can be applied to leadership. This can be applied to the workforce. This can be applied to your life. What are the values that drive my family when we wake up in the morning and we take our first breath? What is driving that breath, right? So setting your values and a values assessment. And if you value development, if you value the true lessons of sport, then you can make objective decisions in what can feel like a very emotional, illogical, subjective world, right? So having those objective values that guide your decision making is really important. I think listening to your child, because so very often it becomes about the parent, right? The parent's journey. I'll give you an example. I had a mother call me. She wanted me to work with her daughter, who was a senior in high school. She was struggling. And she said to me, we're a basketball family. All right. That's the first thing she said to me. And after she said, we're a basketball family, she was enlightened me on her daughter's journey through basketball, where prior to the season, she fell into like a deep depression, anxiety, pressure. And she was truly struggling. And she's trying to decide if she should play basketball again this season. And they're a basketball family, right? So you can see the connection between the two.
Yeah.
It wasn't about what she wanted. They were a basketball family. So it was about what she had to do, right?
It's a duty, an obligation,
Yeah.
as opposed to
Yeah.
joy.
The decision was made for her.
Oh, fun.
And a lot of the, symptoms that the mother was speaking to me about her daughter, it sounded like she was just in so much pain and no one was listening to her. So I think we have to listen to our kids and really hear, what do they want? And I'm saying this to myself as a professional soccer player. I'm not going to ask my child, you must play soccer, right? Because I played the game. You have to be interested in it. One of my favorite presents for our child was a little bib that says, apparently I like soccer, right?
Yeah.
That's essentially it.
Apparently, yeah. Emphasis on parent.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, that's so good.
And it's allowing her, because we're having a baby girl, to lead her own journey and make her own decisions. And our youth, and even now into adulthood, it's about experimentation, Stephen. It's about sampling. And we're so quick to ask our kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? And we're so quick to ask them to choose a sport at the age of 6 and to practice it 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, when science, data, anecdotally it supports experimenting. It supports actually sampling, doing many things, because one, that actually makes you a better athlete who plays for longer, because you develop a wide range of skill from the variety of stimuli that's coming at you.
Yeah.
Well, I know how to read a soccer ball in the air and I can head it because my dad and I threw the football when I was a kid. You know, I could read it underneath the lights. I could catch it, and it translates, right? All of those skills translate. So kids who actually sports specialize from a young age, they are worse athletes. They get injured younger and
more frequently. Yeah. Because they're only doing the same muscles over and over. Yeah. Go do ballet. Yeah.
Exactly. We have the identity foreclosure. It becomes all about who they are versus what they're doing, right? So we see a lot of burnout. And then we're not developing their wholeness, right? We talk about culture and leadership. It's about embracing and understanding whole human beings. And as soon as we siphon our children into certain roles, they no longer get the ability to really experiment and use the testing lab of life to figure out what do they want to do, what fits them physically, what fits them emotionally, what fits them socially. Yeah. For some kids, that's a team sport. For other kids, it's individual sport. For certain kids, it's no sports. It's music, it's dance, it's theater, it's arts.
Yeah.
Right. And above all, like, allow time for your child to be a kid, like dig a hole, like go run around, go on a family vacation. I've had so many conversations with families that haven't been on a vacation in like 5 years because they have so many athletic demands. Right. And again, what are we teaching our kids? Like they need time off. We need balance as individuals. Rest and recovery is so important. Taking a pause, right? Taking a deep breath, going for a walk. Like, these are all aspects of high performance. So essentially what I'm telling you, Stephen, is that the youth sports system now it's crushing high performance. It's misaligned with high performance. And we're trying to do the opposite. So it's crazy.
Well, yeah, you're trying to get high performance, but you're getting the opposite because the focus it's too hard of a focus. A few things that are popping up for me. One, a friend of mine who's about 15 or 20 years my senior has 2 kids. His eldest is 22. His youngest is a boy who's, I think, now 19.
Okay.
And he loves sports, but he was afraid playing ball with his son because his son was just not athletically inclined.
Yeah.
You know, like, he was literally afraid to throw a ball at him because he thought it was going to knock him in the head. And his son picked up a guitar.
Yeah.
And like that was his calling. And so one is what's possible, you know, when that family comes to you and says, we're a basketball family, you know, sort of the powerful question is, beyond basketball, how else do you define yourself?
Yeah.
Oh, well, we're a family where we reward experimentation or joy, or, you know, we treat others with kindness and respect. We, you know, it's what more can you define yourselves beyond a sport? Because I understand that pressure. If you're a basketball family, if you're a soccer player, your identity, your worth is on your performance. Especially to your point, you know, I'm a big baseball fan. You're a success in baseball if you only fail 70% of the time.
Yes.
Right? You're world class if you fail.
If you're good, if you're great.
World class if you fail 70% of the time, at least at that elite level. I also think, go for it.
It reminds me of the Dr. Seuss quote. I may butcher it, but if you try to teach a fish to climb a tree, then, you know, it's going to look stupid, right? So that's kind of what we're talking about, is understanding your own child. What potentially are their strengths, and lean into those, right? And really allow them the space. I think what I'm talking about is space, right? Parents, it's difficult to give that space because it can be painful for a parent to watch their child fail. It can be difficult for a parent to not want to, like we call, snowplow it away, right? To just snowplow all of those issues out of the way to clear the path for their child. But we're doing them an absolute disservice, because you and I are talking about the importance of failure and how it forces us to look at ourselves in a new light. Failure forces us to grow. It's that 4% outside of our comfort zone that we experience peak motivation and growth. So if I'm a snowplow parent, I will never allow my child to feel motivated and to grow. And how sad is that, right? Like, that's the whole essence of sport. And it's difficult for us as parents, I believe, to see that and to give that space, because we want to immediately take the pain away or not allow them to experience it all. So as parents, it's a challenge for us. If my values are growth and development, then I have to understand that I have to create space for pain.
Yeah.
I have to sit with them on that bench when they're not invited to the party and say, yeah, this sucks. You know, this sucks. Let's sit in this feeling right now.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you get older and you're in a mom group and you don't get invited to the mom party, you're going to know how to deal with it because we sat here together and we felt it. Right. So you're really building skills that are going to last them a lifetime by giving them the space to explore their own journey and to feel their own feelings.
Nice.
And that's gonna how I'm gonna approach parenthood, is to give my little baby girl some space, you know. And I want to tell you one beautiful thing about not being the parent who has any DNA in this child, right? So my wife is the carrying mother. We use a sperm donor, so I have no DNA in this child. And that means I won't be looking for all aspects of Joe in my daughter. I won't say to her, "Oh, look, you're athletic like you're like Mama Joe, right? You're good at math like mom, or you're not, you know, you're not dealing with you're impatient like I am, right?" And the beauty of having no DNA in this child is that, like, I can allow them to experience life without putting my own issues on them.
Well, you have no nature and all nurture.
Yes. Yes.
You have no nature and all nurture.
Yeah.
So you do have an impact, but your
For sure.
impact is 100% what happens as a result, you know, post birth. I mean, I'm sure there's research and data of what happens in terms of your comforting of your partner, you know, in
For
utero,
sure. Yeah.
but your 100% influence is nurture.
Yeah. Like, this is your story, my love. Like, you experience it. And do you see yourself, like, and you have two kids, correct, Shed? Like, do you see yourself seeing you through them? And what is that? How does that like kind of manifest itself in your parenting?
So, and I want to speak more about your parenting journey and the shifting mindset you've had. So the first thing that comes to mind for me is, one, I used to think I was a patient person until I had kids.
Uh-oh.
So yeah, I mean, if you want to test your patience or improve your patience muscle, have children. And the very funny thing, and I think you'll still find this from a nurture perspective as well, that so often the things you love about yourself, they exude, and so often the things you don't love about yourself, they exude as well, which can trigger. But yeah, I mean, my wife and I certainly, both in looks as well as behavior, look to that. But I love that reframe. I think so many people might have a feeling of like remorse or regret or like a hard time with that. But like, this is the hand you've been dealt. Right. And I love that perspective that you have there.
Can we double click on the patience piece? So you thought you were patient before you had kids. So what does that look like now? Is it they won't put on their shoes, like tie their shoes after the 15th time you've asked them? You have to count to 10.
It's the, you know, I'm trying to get breakfast going and they're watching a video and I can't get their attention, but like, what's my role in that? Or they're, you know, it's like these, my kids are almost 7 and 4. So, I find that I have I impart my expectation of, you should be keeping up and moving at my pace.
Yeah.
I mean, and even like this morning, we're moving, we're going. My wife is trying to get out the door to go to work. I'm trying to get, you know, kids lunch finished. We're trying to move and go. Both my wife and I are also on our phones because there's stuff coming in, right? And then my son's trying to get our attention and hits a plate and makes a noise, and I get upset. And it's like, no. Like, what's the role that I'm playing, which is a lot, and not paying complete attention to my child, and it's not fair for me to get upset at them. I actually have to examine my behavior more than I criticize theirs.
I think being a parent really tests your present moment awareness, right? We have so many demands coming at us. Cell phones are always available, right? Cell phone is now your alarm clock, your work,
your weather.
Your emails are coming in, your weather, your news, you're getting alerts. And to feel like you're present with your kids must be a challenge, I can imagine.
It's a challenge, but it can also be a joy.
Yeah.
It definitely is a joy. But it takes, you know, I'm really very fortunate to have the partner that I have.
Yeah.
And the designs and the boundaries and the when one of us is losing patience, we
Yeah.
take a breath
Yeah.
and step away, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and I'm also thinking, Joe, the connection between what we just said around, you know, so many leaders in their organizations and their teams look at their people with judgment on how they're
Mm.
not performing, but fail
Mhm.
to examine or look in the mirror
Yeah.
on what they're rewarding and tolerating, or
Yeah.
how their behavior is impacting the behavior, the performance, and the results of their teams.
Yeah, the more I work in this space, Stephen, the more research I do, the more experience I get in mental performance and high performance. I truly believe it all comes down to systems and the environment that we create to reach whatever goals that we have. Because, you know, as James Clear says, we don't rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems. And if you're a leader and you have expectations, you have results, outcomes that you want from your team, if you aren't creating the environment that allows them to reach it, that allows them to feel good about themselves while attempting to reach it, you're not creating an environment of psychological safety, right? And the word that really resonated with me is, what are you rewarding? If we're only rewarding when you hit an outcome, then we're clearly sending the message that all we care about is the result. If we're rewarding, and maybe you can help me with this, like as a company, how do you reward those small moments of failure? How do you reward the process, right? Is it if you make, you know, 30 sales calls today, like you get some sort of reward? Like how do you show it in real time that we're not all about the result? We're actually about you failing and trying and experimenting and going again. And what does that look like?
Yeah. So I just want to highlight this comment. It's from the infamous LinkedIn user, "Winning is the byproduct," which is spot on. I'm not sure, Ale, if that's Mary Beth or who that is, but Ale will let us know. So I think the thing is, what do you want to incentivize? So in our cultures, we get the behavior we reward, and we get the
Yeah,
behavior
of
that we
course.
tolerate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you want to celebrate and reward experimentation and failure, it's your responsibility as a leader to ensure that when your people are experimenting, they're punching bullet holes above the waterline and not below. So if you give your team leash to try and they fail, and it creates failure, like it creates irrevocable failure, that's on you.
Yeah.
Leash was too long. So it's around what's the culture you're creating that people are letting you know what they're working on and tinkering on, but you're giving them appropriate leash. And if they do take a risk and fail, it doesn't sink the ship.
Yeah.
That's called empowerment.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't think it's necessarily around volume of, you know, in the context of sales calls. Because if it's just about volume, good luck to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I love the way Zappos does customer service. They reward people for delight rather than speed and quick. You know, there's a great example of the late Tony Hsieh calling his customer service. I forget where he was, but he wasn't in Vegas, and he's like, "Hey, I'm here. I need help finding a pizza shop." And his Zappos customer service, not knowing who it was like, "I'll help you out. Give me 3 minutes," right? And it was amazing. And that's how you develop loyalty with Zappos, not because of the shoes, but because of the customer service when you're looking for a pizza. And I'm told that's our friend Gianna Biscontini. Commenting. What's up, G?
What is up, G?
So tell us, Joe, around, I mean, you know, we were speaking before around you sort of, there's like a grief of becoming a parent, of grieving the freedom and the flexibility in the life you had. Tell us about that transformation and how you're viewing it now, and even viewing it as it's good for your business.
Yeah, no, it really is. That sounds so trite, but and G's going to get this because we spoke about it recently. Is I think 2 or 3 months ago, I was sitting in a space more of the loss, right? That having a child, you do have to grieve the life that you had previously, because it's going to change. It's going to change significantly. And whether it's the spontaneity or the be able to leave the house without planning 17 things and having a bag of diapers. And it's just, it's a freedom aspect that you somewhat have to mourn the death of when you have a child. And that's not to say that you can't do wonderful things. Wonderful things still happen. You still go wonderful places, but there is you lose a bit of freedom. So I think I was sitting in a space of more of the mourning, right? And understanding I was still very excited. And since, as I've gotten closer to really having the child and becoming more prepared, right, of putting in that car seat and getting the nursery ready, I've been starting to feel a bit better about the excitement piece. And also the lens that I've been taking, which is going to sound funny, is as I'm getting into this space, the intersection of youth sports and parenting and alleviating suffering through joy, it's really important for me to be on the ground. It's really important for me to have mud on my knees, mud under my fingernails. And the only way to do that is to have a child, right? Is to have a child where I'm experiencing these moments, these emotional moments as a parent where you feel like it's so subjective. You feel like it's so illogical, and you're able to put logic and value-based decisions behind it. So I think for me, having a child is really going to be even more of an experiment laboratory of what kind of issues are parents facing today? What are the points of friction, and how do we help alleviate? How do we help really alleviate the suffering and the pain that sports parents are feeling, and therefore the kids are experiencing through them? And I'm excited to see kind of how I take it, right? Because I have clarity now, Stephen. I don't have a kid, right? I don't have skin in the game, but soon I'm going to have skin in the game. How much more emotional will I become when I see my daughter fall over or get bullied or have a coach that yells at her in a game? How's that going to make me feel? And what will be my reaction to it?
Yeah, your response. Yeah.
Yeah, my response to it. And
maybe first reaction and then response. But yeah,
totally. And my partner Melody and I are already developing our framework of values of how we want to raise our daughter. And one of which pops into my brain: the things that you care about are worth failing for, right? That's something that I live by. That's a value that I live and breathe each day, is that the things that I care about are worth taking risks for, right? They're worth looking silly or dumb for. So these are kind of the spaces that we're existing in, where we're trying to set these values and having them guide us in a way where we feel like we can make clarity and united decisions as we move forward through a world that's going to be full of adversity, change, challenge, pressure, everything that the parents face.
Yeah. Was it Tyson who said, and this is butchering his quote, but right, your plan always works until you get punched in the face. But
punch in the face,
right? But I love that you're making a plan. I mean, my wife and I, we've sort of backed into or realized or articulated some of our values that we really try to espouse and live in our house. I mean, one, treat all people as human beings, dignity, respect. We talk about the fact that we are allowed and encouraged to talk about our emotions, especially the hard ones. Like those are the two sort of foundational ones that we really try to espouse here. And like, not just in part with words, but in part with our behavior with our kids.
Yeah.
Right. Even to the point where we create an accountability that they call us out on it. And likewise, if one of us isn't. So it's those values that guide us.
You have a moment that pops into your brain of a time that you really were able to fall back on those values, or an experience happened that really shaped you all? And
I mean, it's those values that really bring my wife and I together, and that's the culture that we want to have for our kids. Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking of one time where our daughter was just misbehaving.
Okay.
And for some reason, when she misbehaves, she laughs because she thinks that she'll get out of trouble, but it just makes it worse. And I remember there was this one time when she was doing it where she must have been just before our son Jack was born, and my wife and I got so upset. It happened again recently, and she's now almost 7.
Yeah.
But we now know this is a pattern of behavior. She's not laughing to make fun of us. She's laughing to try to make light of the situation and get out of it. Like, it's a nervous response, which we've learned. And so, we made it through it, but I sort of debriefed that with her and said, hey, like, can you share with me for what reason, like, you laugh when you're getting in trouble?
Yeah.
And she's like, because I'm trying to get out of trouble. And I'm like, well, I have news for you, sweetie. It makes you get in more trouble. Like, let's just take a breath, like,
yeah,
be honest, and let's move through it. And, you know, laughing when we're trying to have a serious conversation with you doesn't make things better. It makes things worse, you know?
That's incredible.
Um,
That's a really great story to highlight it. No, I love it. You know,
I'm,
one way that I'm progressing in my own personal career is not just talking about these things, but really building the laboratory of how do we experiment. And I'm working with G, who's, you know, been coaching me and really providing inspiration for me, is creating something like the parent playbook, right? So how can I, whether this be a newsletter or a podcast, I'm not sure how it's going to form itself, or even a hybrid version of it, is how do we create this working laboratory where a lot of these ideas, when it comes to mental performance, high performance, everything that I've experienced, learned, what I've written in my book, how do I share this knowledge with my network? Because I have a huge network now of parents of youth who play sports.
yeah.
And how do I, again, troops on the ground, right? Their feet are on the ground. How do I get engagement response for them about the challenges they're facing in the modern day world? And how do we solve them? How do we provide that anecdote or that painkiller so we feel like we're actually building self-actualized, highly developed kids who grow into confident, resilient, self-assured adults who can walk through the world knowing that they can face whatever is thrown at them.
Nice.
Right. So that's what makes my heart beat every day.
Yeah.
You know? And I'm trying to create, I would say, you know, the community for this, and what's the best way to get them this laboratory. So
love that.
Yeah.
Look at the street cred becoming a parent. I love it.
Yeah.
A couple things come to mind, and please, in our last sort of 5-10 minutes here, please add in any other questions or comments here. This is Switch, who just put in this long comment. Such a great topic. Sharing with my kids later tonight. Boom. Thanks, Switch. Love that long comment there. We'll take a deeper look at that. I'm thinking, Joe, I have to give a hat tip to my brother and his wife. They have one kiddo who's turning 6 early on next year, into sports, into music as well.
Yeah.
And he's taken to piano right now.
Okay.
And he's decided for his recital to compose his own music.
Wow. At 6 years old?
Not even 6. He's like, you know, he's almost 6. Will be 6 in a couple months.
That's incredible.
But like the creativity, and also seeing like the anxiety as well of like, ooh, how is he gonna do? But it's just like, no, like it doesn't matter how he does.
Right.
He's composing his own music. Like that's so good. That I just love.
Yeah. And you brought up the phrase, the feeling of anxiety. And it's important for us to understand that a moderate level of stress, anxiety is an enhancer, right? Before every single game that I played professionally, I was nervous. And that's because we care, right? We care about the outcome. We care about how we look as we're performing. And so it's important to know that moderate amount of stress is an enhancer in our performance. So we don't want to be going through the world sitting in our comfortable space all the time, right?
Yep.
There will be no growth, there will be no development. It's when it gets to a dangerous level of stress and anxiety, that's when we really have to be paying attention. That's when the parent has to be putting up the red flag, right? I'm seeing a level of stress and anxiety that's actually a performance dehancer, right? And I think that's what we're playing with now, is that we're finding situations where our kids are in environments where the stress, the pressure is just too high. To give an example, like a 9-year-old that I know quite well, and her father, their coach kept telling them, we have to win this tournament. We have to win this tournament. They're 9 years old, you know, like, no, you don't. Right. Yeah. So they're going into the tournament thinking they have to win. And again, their identity is wrapped around this outcome. Their ability to be loved and accepted is wrapped around this outcome, right? Because we're looking outward. We're looking outward for our own self-worth. As soon as we do that, we're in danger, right? I'm looking around and asking everybody else, am I okay? Asking my coach. And if I don't win, then I'm not okay. So there's a level of stress that's not going to help them to perform better. They're going to freeze, right? They're going to be paralyzed. They're going to be worried about making mistakes. They're going to be worried about, showing up, right? And so they show up in a way of not to lose, of not to make a mistake, versus showing up, I'm going to thrive. I'm going to take risks. I'm going to push myself in this game. And if that's consistently what they're learning, again, they're not in a space of psychological safety or motivation or growth.
Yeah. I think the biggest takeaway that I'm getting from this is the importance of us as individuals, us as leaders, as parents, as anyone, to get a sense of what are our values, our own values, what truly matters to us beyond I'm a basketball, we're a basketball family.
Yeah, we're a basketball family.
Truly, what are your values? Now, you cannot control the values of others. You just can't.
Yes.
But you can control or attempt to control who you associate with. And though it might be inconvenient to travel further to a different league or a different coach or a different community or whatever, and I'm aware that not everyone, has transportation or cars or vehicles at their fingerprints, but how can we be conscious of what are our values? How might they complement or differ from others? And even if they do differ, there are lessons, or there are things that we can teach our kids of this is what we do and this is what we don't do, as what it means to be part of our family.
Yeah, it all begins with values. And then when a decision point comes, let's give an example. A decision point comes where my daughter plays for a coach who is verbally abusive, who screams on the sideline, who joystick coaches, right? Who always tells them where to be when. And on top of that, she has a lot of friends on that team, right? But I have to look, what are our values as a family? If our values are to use sport to build self-actualized humans, then all it is, Shed, is a misalignment of our values, right? I don't align with that coach. And it's like, it's not that personal. It's something so simple. It's something so objective of like, hey, we're tapping out of this club. We're tapping out and we're pulling our resources, which is important, right? We're pulling our money, we're pulling our time, we're pulling our energy from this club because it's a misalignment of our values. The same thing we would do if we worked for an organization that misaligned with our values. The same thing we would do if we worked for a boss, right?
Or if our kid was a friend with a family that we didn't resonate with values, whatever, we would try to influence that for the better. Yeah. Totally.
Totes.
What else have we not discussed that you wanted to? I love that you threw out sort of this public challenge for you to create this parenting playbook. And I'm so pumped for you to step into parenthood and to learn from what you learn, because I know that you will be generous and share it as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm excited to really get the engagement and the feedback from the people who are experiencing these tough moments, right? And these tough decisions. So it's going to be a fun space to work in. And it all really, it ties back to the mind, right? It ties back to performance and the mental aspect of it, which is something that I'm so interested in. Is like how the brain works. How do we use our mind and our thoughts to enhance performance, right? How do we quiet that internal critic that we all have? So this is the spaces that I'm working passion and a lot of joy, is to really help people build their authenticity and resilience through how are they thinking, right? And how can we quiet that inner critic that we all have and comes out at all the right moments.
Nice. And be really conscious around, what are the spaces we're sending our kids? What are the spaces that we're choosing to be a part of as well? And do they align with our own values? And
let's think about this for a second. How you speak to your child becomes their inner voice, right? So that's a powerful idea, right? How you speak to your child becomes their inner voice. So if I'm constantly judging and critiquing, their inner voice is going to be a judger and a critic.
Yeah.
So it's remembering the influence that we have on the people around us, right? Not just our kids, but if we're constantly criticizing our coworkers, or if we're constantly that negative voice in the team meeting, that becomes their voice. And do we want to lift people up or break them down? So it's really understanding what is our impact on people and how do we serve, right? How do we serve the people around us in the best way possible? Because that's what brings you and I joy, Shed, right? Is like serving those that we love.
Totally. And these children are such a sponge. I mean, I mean,
Yeah.
I talk about how cultures like pickle brine, right?
Hmm.
Meaning, you know, you put the best cucumber there is in the world in the worst possible pickle brine, you get a shitty pickle. And
I
similarly,
love this. I'm writing this down.
you can take a mediocre cucumber, put it in great pickle brine, and you have an excellent pickle. And so the environment and the systems, to your
Hmm.
point, that we're
Yeah.
in really impact.
Yeah.
And those kids, you know, especially in those first 10 to 12 years where their identity is their family so much, they're
Yeah.
sponges. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm so looking forward to your journey
Thank you.
ahead. Good luck to you and Melody. And yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait to learn from the journey that you both continue to go on with your young kiddo who apparently is going to be
Apparently like soccer.
apparently, yeah. Yeah. Emphasis on parent and apparently. Joe, thank you. Anything else to share before we hop and end this one?
I just want to thank you, Shed, for sharing your knowledge with me and giving me this space, right? You gave me a space to share my joy with the world. So I want to thank you and applaud you for that. And for everyone who is listening and watching today, thank you for being here for this conversation.
You rock, my friend. Thanks so much. Again soon, and good luck with everything ahead.
Thank you. Same to you.
Cool. Speak soon.
Bye.